Okay, Manchester City Chelsea, the first FA Cup semi-finals finished 1-0 to Manchester City. Bernardo Silva with the only goal in 84 minutes. It took 52 minutes for Man City to get a shot on target. Chelsea had lots of shots on target. They weren't very well taken. Nicholas Jackson should have had a hat-trick. Should have had a hat-trick. Not great finishing by Nicholas Jackson. Poor finishing. Yeah, he gets his shots on target, but they're weak. Weak. Both sides sloppy at times. Man City, dangerous high line. Chelsea, for all their flaws and all the issues Chelsea have with the squad and inconsistency, have pace. They do have pace. And Man City were lucky that Chelsea were wasteful. Man City could have had an interesting half-time team talk if they went in behind, because they could have been and should have been maybe 2 or 3 goals down. Second half the same. Again, high line. Early on in the second half, Man City looked very shaky, very wobbly, really lethargic. They didn't look their best in this game. They looked very, very tired. Chelsea, that inexperience and that lack of cohesion with very few veteran players in the squad, and it's the second youngest squad in the Premier League, I think has cost them. They've got some great youngsters, and that there are some real positive signs with a lot of their young players going forward. It takes time to build a team. They've brought a lot of players in. There's a lot of squad turnover, and they have lost a lot of senior leaders from the dressing room over the last couple of years. So that transition phase the club is in is going to continue, I think, into next year. They've got to stick with Pochettino. He's proven with this side that he can get good results out of them. The 6-0 against Everton. I'm also surprised Chelsea couldn't hit the back of the net today, considering they've also managed to score 4 against Man City at a previous league match this season. So we know Chelsea can score. Man City can concede goals. So I'm very surprised it was a 1-0. Both sides a bit wasteful with shots off target. There were a lot of them. A lot of misplaced, unnecessary, poor passes as well. Chelsea looked very, very good on the counter-attack. Man City looked a little bit vulnerable defensively. Chelsea, though, again, final third let them down. Man City were decent on the counter-attack, but then they slow it down and try and score the perfect goal by overplaying. Trying to, play perfect football. And that comes from the manager. That style comes from the manager. Guardiola is a perfectionist, almost in a negative way. Players do talk about how he's a very difficult manager to play for and please. And whether that's a good or a bad thing, seeking perfection in everything, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see when Pep moves on or retires from management, takes some time out, and when certain players who played under him retire, what they have to say about Guardiola and his methods. We know some of his previous players have been heavily critical of some of his methods. Yes, he's won a lot, but there's some criticisms along the way, and you've got to take that. I don't think playing that perfect game today was the right style to use. They managed to win, but it wasn't a convincing Man City performance. And with all the talk about the FA Cup and replays being scrapped, and we've done content on that, this wasn't a classic. It was entertaining, but it wasn't a classic FA Cup tie. There were some feisty challenges, yes, that we like to see. The referees letting the game flow a little bit more, not calling everything. There were some good opportunities. I wouldn't say it was the worst game I've seen. It wasn't the best. It was entertaining. It did open up in the second half, and it was still 0-0. But on a technical standpoint, it wasn't the best game that's ever been played in English football. Not the best game I've ever seen. Not the worst. But you could see it's an end of the season type of game. Both Chelsea had a little bit more energy than Man City, I think. Man City have got a more stable squad, more veteran leadership, more balance, and that does count for a lot. Chelsea, very youthful, very inexperienced in certain positions, very unsettled, and you can see that as well as played out with their inconsistent performances this season. In saying that, I think overall, Man City slightly edge it. Even though it was 1-0, but if Chelsea had taken, should I say, their opportunities, they could have been 3-0 up at half time. They could have scored a hatful, and this is that inconsistency. So there we go. Man City are through to the final. It could be an all Manchester final. High chances of it being an all Manchester final, but do not rule out Coventry City pulling off, should I say, an upset tomorrow. But their form going into tomorrow's game is not great. They've not had a great run of form in the Championship. They're slipping out the playoff places. But we could see an all Sky Blue final, or we could see an all Manchester final. Either way, Man City, in my opinion, will be favourites to win the FA Cup, which will be a nice consolation prize considering that they're out the Champions League. They didn't win the League Cup. They're not guaranteed to win the Premier League. So they've gone from being in competition for 4 trophies to now 2. But they are now favourites, I think, for the final. We could see some squad rotation now with Man City to keep players fresh. I don't know. The league race is very, very tight. Will Guardiola have no choice but to rotate players? Haaland didn't even make the matchday squad today. So there we go. We'll see how this all plays out. But for me, for now, thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts on the game below, and I'll have some more content for you guys very, very soon.